So, I guess I'm in between games at the moment. This happens to me a lot. I spend a few months devouring countless indie games, AAA console releases, and old school favourites, only to find myself a smouldering, burnt out husk. Weeks pass, my inbox becomes a graveyard of unclaimed review codes. Pre-orders I forgot I even purchased are placed loosely on my shelf the second they tumble through my letterbox. Their untouched plastic wrappers a cocoon they'll spend eternity trapped within. My Switch loses charge and gathers dust in some forgotten corner of my office. Instead of playing, I spend my days doing worthless activities like grabbing drinks with friends, spending time with my fiancé, or reading a book, like some kind of f***ing idiot. Yesterday, following a few frustrating hours of attempting to write something, anything, I resigned myself to being well and truly stuck in a creative funk. So I took a deep breath, made a conscious decision to take a few weeks off making videos until I felt I was back on my feet again, stepped away from the computer and sat down on the sofa. Lovely, sweet relief at last. Out of habit, I immediately pulled out my phone, opened Holedown and began playing. Wait, hold on, playing? This is a video game. A video game I've been playing for about 2 weeks now, every day, probably for a combined total of, 2 hours? Just picking at it in between other activities? So here's the thing, I'm always playing something on my phone. Ever since I upgraded to my first smartphone in 2010, a HTC Wildfire, a miserable little machine that barely ran anything correctly and was awful even for the time, I've been poking and prodding at a screen whenever I'm on a bus, waiting in a queue, or, sitting on the toilet. For a long time at university, Angry Birds was my poison of choice, like it was for so many of us, I'm sure, the simplistic gameplay and short levels providing welcome distractions from dull seminars. Eventually my HTC was replaced with an iPhone 4, and a world of possibilities were afforded to me by this exciting new hardware. Bejeweled, Plants vs Zombies, Jetpack Joyride, Angry Birds Space, Fruit Ninja, full-blown experiences that utilised the functionality of the touchscreen to great effect, providing short but sweet bursts of pure entertainment at a moment's notice. In the early 2010s, mobile gaming felt genuinely exciting. An entirely new type of video game that was endlessly inventive, affordable, and easily accessible. Obviously, as we all know, sitting in the dark year of 2021, this trend did not last. Within months, Clash of Clans and Candy Crush proved that free-to-play games with time gates and invasive microtransactions weren't just a profitable idea, they were also incredibly popular. Free, after all, is still cheaper than the 79p most apps went for at the time, and engagement became the metric all games were valued by from there on out. Overnight, it seemed, paid experiences disappeared, replaced instead by Skinner boxes that held your precious free time ransom in exchange for petty cash. Despite this change, my love for mobile games persisted. Boom Beach, Peggle Blast, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, Pokemon Go. I am clearly perpetually hungry for digestible content and incapable of filtering through the chaff. I'm aware there's still, even today, thousands of must-play paid-for apps that would equally satisfy my craving for something to poke at, but, well, have you seen the App Store lately? Unless you're subscribed to Apple Arcade, a service that feels too expensive for what it is, and believe me, that's an opinion of mine that makes me feel grumpy and cross for even thinking it in the first place, Apple makes very few attempts to push quote-unquote classic phone games to users on its bloated storefront. For about a year now, I've been sporadically wasting my life playing Mario Kart Tour, a mobile game that tricks you into thinking you're playing an actual Mario Kart game on your phone, despite featuring some of the most aggressive examples of modern mobile game design I've seen in recent years. A monthly subscription pass, pay-to-win microtransactions, gacha elements, a purchasable currency. It's yucky, but it's something to poke at every day. Look, there's Mario. There he is. Thankfully, after listening to a recent indie game themed episode of the excellent Backpage podcast, and please do make sure you check out that podcast, it's just the most wonderful podcast available right now, link in the description below, I discovered Holedown, available now for both iOS and Android. It costs £3 and it's absolutely marvellous. Holedown is a game about shooting balls to break blocks. I think of it as sort of like Breakout but flipped vertically so the blocks are on the bottom. Also it's turn-based, like Peggle. Blocks of various shapes rise up towards the top of the screen at the end of every turn, and unless destroyed, spell game over. You fire a string of tiny little balls towards them, each hit knocking a point off the block's health bar. Destroying most blocks will see those attached to them collapse, spare ones screwed into the wall that must be dealt with individually before they reach the top. Subsequent turns provide you with more balls, and the aim of the game is to utilise your limited number of balls to chew through as many blocks as possible in an attempt to reach the planet's core. Oh yeah, it's contextualised as mining, I think. That's why the balls have faces. I don't know who this guy is. My dad, maybe? Additional complexity is introduced in the form of blocks with a higher number of hit points that must be dealt with swiftly to avoid crashing. Thankfully, your crew of sentient balls can be upgraded in a shop by spending a currency earned during play, allowing you to fire more balls or have more turns. The magic here lies in the form of the blocks themselves, or rather their edges. Rounded rather than square, lining up shots requires taking these curved edges into account. Where will my string of projectiles go if I line them up against this edge? Will they ricochet off at just the right angle to become trapped underneath a pile of blocks beneath it, causing them to bounce repeatedly until every single fragment of rock melts off the screen? Or will I miss completely, with all of my balls returning to the top of the screen, complete with a feeling of deep personal shame? It's a simple idea, but by making every shot feel slightly unpredictable, the developers ensure that achieving that ever-elusive multi-bounce is satisfying every single time you pull it off. It also prevents balls from becoming stuck, the curved edges ensuring that your tiny creatures will always return to the top of the screen no matter what. A tight gameplay loop, expressive graphics, inventive design, no whiff of microtransactions or predatory engagement practices. What is this, 2010? So yeah, I found myself playing a lot of Holedown recently. Idly, in between things, waiting for the kettle to boil, my bath to run, a video to render. I never devote more than 5 minutes to it, yet every time I close the app, I feel relaxed. Happy. For the first time in years, my random prodding is resulting in something that feels like actual progress. Holedown has levels, and alongside an infinite high score mode, an actual achievable end. A rarity with games on this platform. It's nice to pick at something that doesn't feel too overwhelming but still requires a level of engagement. For those of us that appreciate play as a form of escapism, even when feeling burnt out or unmotivated by larger releases, mobile games can offer respite in small digestible chunks, consumable in between other activities throughout the day and rarely requiring you to carve out hours of your life to focus on their complex systems, far-reaching narratives, or endless seasons of missable content. Ugh. I pick my phone up, poke at it for a bit, I put it back down. It's an accessible form of play that even other handheld devices like the Switch struggle to accommodate. There's just something about this device that fulfills this specific need so well. Maybe it's the form factor, maybe it's our cultural reliance on mobile phones that means we always have one on hand no matter where we are. Maybe it's just that as human beings, sometimes our brains only have a limited amount of capacity at certain points in the day. Maybe there's just something nice in simple, quick loading, 30-second bursts of colour and light. I'm not sure, it's something I've been thinking about for a few weeks now. Also, it's hard to shake the feeling when playing something like Holedown that phones still have so much potential as gaming devices. The Nintendo DS proved over a decade ago that prodding something on a screen is both easy to understand and fun to do. There's something very tactile about it as an input, physically dragging or poking or rotating a thing to perform an action. There's a reason the Switch has a touchscreen, the 3DS did too, hell even PlayStation's DualSense controller has one. It works, and the success of things like Candy Crush speaks volumes of how easy it is to communicate the rules of play when using a touchscreen as a method of input to even someone with no knowledge of video games at all. Holedown itself is available on both PC and Switch, but honestly I just can't see it working as well with buttons or a mouse. This is a game that feels built for a vertical display, for dragging a finger across the screen to line up that one perfect shot that could potentially save your run. The way the balls fly the second your digit lifts off the screen, the rubbery nature of the blocks that wobble as your tiny creatures repeatedly smash against them, there's something that must be lost in that transition to an analog stick, I think. Something that dulls the connection between you and the device. I think we're too harsh on mobile games. Well, maybe not too harsh, but you know what I mean. As an industry, we're quick to disregard them as actual games, despite them remaining one of the more profitable arms of the entire medium. And I think we all play them, secretly, or maybe subconsciously. Pokemon Go, Mario Kart Tour, PUBG Mobile, Fortnite, Marvel Puzzle Quest. How magic is it that our telephones are also such powerful handheld consoles? How cool is it that we all own these mini gateways to hundreds of thousands of incredible experiences built and tailored for such accessible input methods? I know the question of creating profitable mobile games in 2021 without succumbing to the issues I've touched upon here is complicated. Apple Arcade is literally designed to address this issue, and honestly I think I desperately need to give it a proper go at some point to dig into what secrets it holds, but is the average consumer spending £5 a month on a subscription to that? Are they spending their free time playing clap hands golf? Because I reckon they're going onto the App Store and browsing the charts for the best free game. That's a shame. Or maybe it isn't, because it's serving that purpose regardless, right? That burst of colour, that quick distraction, that desire for play that we all share. I like Holedown. I like fun games. I like play as a concept. And I like how mobile devices by their very nature distill that concept down to its purest form. You know, do yourself a favour, think to yourself why you enjoy playing that Skinner box you're obsessed with, or that puzzle game that's been a mainstay on every iPhone you've owned since 2013. What do you get out of it? I'd imagine you'll arrive at the same conclusions that I have, that sometimes simple games are fun, palatable, and a portable, accessible format fulfills a specific need. So it turns out I'm not in between games. Something had simply positioned itself so neatly into my life that I didn't even notice it was there at all.